You know what the most dangerous move you'll ever make is? Not fighting, not arguing, not trying to prove yourself. It's walking away. Because the moment you detach, the game changes. You stop feeding into the drama. You stop giving him what he craves most, your attention, your energy, your validation. And when you cut that off, everything around him starts to crumble. That shiny new romance he thought was the answer. Watch it begin to rot from the inside out. Here's the truth. People don't transform just because they swapped out partners. The same flaws, the same lies, the same cracks. They follow him into the next chapter. And when the fireworks of that new beginning burn out, when the reality sets in, guess whose absence he feels the most? Yours. But this isn't about him. This is about you stepping into your strength, into your silence, into your power. Detachment isn't weakness. It's the ultimate display of self-respect. It says, I don't need to chase. I don't need to beg. I don't even need to explain. I am enough as I am. And here's where it gets interesting, because the more you pull back, the more his world shakes. The more you focus on you, the more he's forced to sit in his choices. That collapse. It's not if, it's when. And when it happens, when he comes circling back, it won't be because you asked him to. It'll be because he realized what he lost. Now the real question is, by the time he does, will you even care? Detachment is one of the hardest things you will ever learn to do. Because everything inside you wants to hold on. Your mind clings. Your heart holds. You replay every memory, every word, every detail, trying to make sense of what happened. And the idea of letting go feels like giving up, like surrender, like you're losing. But that's not what detachment is. Detachment is not punishment, it's power. Let me explain. Punishment is about control, trying to make someone else feel the sting of your hurt. But power is about control over yourself. It's about choosing what you give your energy to, what you feed, and what you starve. The moment you detach, you're making a statement without saying a word. I choose me. I choose peace. I choose to put my dignity above drama. See, most people get this part wrong. They think that detachment is cold, that it's cruel, that it means you don't care anymore. But the opposite is true. Detachment means you've cared so much for so long that you refuse to keep bleeding energy into something that drains you. It means you're finally strong enough to step back and recognize not every battle is worth fighting. Not every person is worth chasing. Not every loss is actually a loss. When you detach, you're not trying to manipulate him into missing you. You're not playing games. You're not running some strategy. You're reclaiming control over your emotions, and that is the highest level of strength you can ever achieve. Because think about it. Anyone can react. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can scream, text back, demand answers, stalk social media, or send a paragraph explaining their pain. That's easy. That's emotional chaos. But do you know what very few people can do? Walk away in silence. That takes discipline. That takes courage. That takes a kind of self-respect that rattles the ground under someone else's feet. Detachment is power because it shifts the focus back to you. Instead of living in reaction to what he does, you start living in alignment with who you are. You stop asking, why did he choose her? Why did he move on so fast? Why didn't I matter? And you start asking, what do I want to build? Who do I want to become? What standard do I want to set for my life? And let me tell you something, when you make that shift, everything changes. Because here's what happens when you refuse to engage. You break the cycle. He expects you to fight, to argue, to keep proving your worth. He expects you to chase, but instead you go silent. You invest in yourself. You glow up. You redirect all that energy into your body, your mind, your goals, your future. Suddenly you're not accessible anymore. You're not sitting by the phone. You're not scrolling through his feed. You're not checking in to see what he's doing, who he's with, or whether he's happy. You've disappeared from his radar. And that silence, that absence, it's louder than anything you could have said. Detachment is power because it forces the other person to face themselves. When you're no longer cushioning the blow, no longer picking up the pieces, no longer feeding their ego with your attention, they have to sit in their own decisions. They have to deal with the reality of the choices they made. And reality is never as pretty as the fantasy. The fantasy fades, the cracks show, the lies surface, the honeymoon burns out. And when it does, your absence is the mirror they're forced to look into. But let's go deeper. Detachment isn't just about him. It's about you reclaiming your identity. Because somewhere along the way, you lost yourself. You bent, you sacrificed, you gave pieces of yourself away just to keep something alive that wasn't nourishing you anymore. And detachment says, enough. I don't need to shrink myself to be chosen. I don't need to beg for someone to see my value. I am whole, with or without anyone else's validation. When you truly detach, you realize that love isn't supposed to come at the cost of your peace. If someone walks out, if someone chooses someone else, if someone treats you as if you're replaceable, that's not your burden to carry. That's their reflection, not your reality. And the more you internalize that truth, the freer you become. You stop reacting, you stop explaining, you stop proving, you stand, you breathe, you rebuild. And here's the irony. When you stop chasing, when you detach and pour into yourself, that's when the tables turn. Because people feel absence in a way they never expect. Attention is addictive. Your energy, your love, your care. Those things are powerful. And when they're gone, when the noise quiets, when the supply dries up, suddenly they're left with nothing but the echo of your silence. And that silence makes them think. It makes them remember. It makes them regret. But I need you to understand this. Detachment is not a strategy to get him back. That's not the point. The point is to get yourself back, to get your power back, to stand tall again, to remind yourself who you were before the chaos, before the heartbreak, before you forgot your worth. Because when you detach for you, not for him, you win, no matter what happens next. That's why detachment is power. It's not punishment, because punishment is about them. Power is about you. And once you own it, once you live in it, once you realize that you don't need to chase what's running away, you step into a whole new level of freedom. That's when you become untouchable. That's when you become magnetic. That's when you finally understand you never lost him. He lost you. That so-called new love always looks dazzling from the outside. You know the story. The smiles, the hand-holding, the photos that suddenly flood social media, the captions that sound like they were pulled from a romance novel. To everyone else, it looks like magic. To you, it feels like betrayal. But let me tell you something, what you're seeing is not love. It's an illusion. It's the honeymoon phase, the highlight reel, the shiny mask, worn over the same cracks, the same insecurities, the same broken habits that never got fixed. You see, people don't change overnight just because they found someone new. The same patterns that destroyed what you had are the same patterns they will carry forward. If he was selfish with you, he'll be selfish with her. If he lacked discipline with you, he'll lack discipline with her. If he lied to you, he will lie again. That's not negativity. That's psychology. Human behavior doesn't rewrite itself just because you change the cast of characters. And yet, in the early days of new love, everyone acts like this time will be different. Why? Because the honeymoon phase is intoxicating. Everything feels exciting, fresh, and effortless. Nobody argues about bills or responsibilities. Nobody's talking about long-term values or building a real life together. It's all dopamine and butterflies. But dopamine burns out. Butterflies die. And when that initial high fades, that's when reality shows up. That's when the illusion collapses. I want you to understand something powerful here. New love isn't about her being better than you. It's about him trying to escape himself. When someone jumps into something new so quickly, it's rarely about genuine connection. It's about distraction. It's about covering up guilt. It's about trying to prove something to the world. To you, maybe even to themselves. It's not love. It's a bandage. and bandages can only cover wounds for so long before the infection underneath starts to spread. Now, from where you're standing, it might feel like he's thriving. You see the photos, you hear the stories, and you start to compare yourself, thinking, was I not enough? Did she give him what I couldn't? That's the trap. That's the illusion. What you're really seeing is performance. People perform happiness because they're trying to convince themselves that they've upgraded. But real love isn't about performance. It's about presence, consistency, and growth. And this is where the cracks begin to show. Because in the beginning, it's easy to mask bad habits. It's easy to hold your temper, to act generous, to be charming and attentive. But nobody can play a role forever. The mask slips. The truth surfaces. The late nights, the arguments, the unmet expectations, they all creep in. And guess what? He hasn't dealt with his flaws. He hasn't healed his patterns. So they follow him into this new love. And suddenly she's not getting the man you once knew in those perfect early days. She's getting the man you ended with. This is why you must detach and trust the process. Because from the outside, it looks like you lost. But in reality, you just stepped out of a cycle. He is doomed to repeat. That new love is not love. It's a replay. Same game, new player. And the truth always comes out. But here's the bigger picture. Your detachment is the key to letting that illusion collapse. Because the moment you stop feeding into it, the moment you stop watching, checking, reacting, he's left to sit in it. He doesn't get to feel your energy, your jealousy, your heartbreak fueling him. He doesn't get to prove anything to you anymore. And without an audience, that performance loses its shine. Now it's just him and her, face to face with reality. No spotlight, no validation, just the truth. Let me tell you what happens next, and you've probably seen it before. That new love will start to demand the very same things you once did. Time, effort, honesty, consistency. And when he fails to deliver, when he shows up as the same flawed man, the cracks get wider. Arguments replace laughter. Tension replaces thrill. And suddenly, the fairy tale feels a lot like the nightmare you already escaped. And this is why you cannot buy into the illusion. Because if you believe it's real, you'll stay stuck in comparison. You'll question your worth. You'll think you weren't enough. But if you recognize it for what it is, temporary, fragile, unsustainable, you realize you dodged a storm. You realize you didn't lose anything. In fact, you gained your freedom. The illusion of new love is dangerous because it's designed to trigger your insecurity. It makes you want to chase, to prove, to remind him of what he lost. But that's exactly how you give away your power. The truth is, the collapse of that new relationship isn't your business. It's not your job to speed it up or interfere. It's your job to stand tall, to stay silent, to pour into yourself while it falls apart on its own. And trust me, it will. Not because you wished it, but because illusions always collapse under the weight of reality. So here's what I want you to remember. What you see now is not love. It's a performance. It's the highlight reel. It's smoke and mirrors. Real love is tested. Real love is consistent. Real love survives storms. And what you're watching isn't built to last. It's built to distract, to soothe, to prove. And when that performance ends, when the lights go out, when reality checks in, your silence, your absence, your detachment will echo louder than anything else. That's when he'll remember. That's when he'll feel the weight of losing you. And that's when you'll realize, while he was busy chasing illusions, you were busy building something real yourself. Silence is one of the most underestimated weapons you will ever have. People think power is about having the best comeback, the sharpest words, the loudest voice. They think it's about proving a point, making sure the other person understands exactly how much they hurt you. But the truth is, silence cuts deeper than any speech ever could. Silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. It's the refusal to waste your breath on someone who no longer deserves access to your energy. Think about it. When someone wrongs you, they expect a reaction. They expect anger, tears, begging, or pleading. They expect to feel significant enough to provoke you. That's the fuel that feeds their ego, your attention, your reaction, your energy. The moment you go silent, you starve them. You cut off their supply. You take away the one thing they thought they would always have, your voice in their story. And suddenly, they're left with nothing but their own choices, echoing back at them. Silence is powerful because it forces people to confront themselves. When you speak, they can dismiss your words. They can twist them, argue back, manipulate, or defend themselves. But when you're silent, there's nothing to argue with. There's no distraction from the truth. They're stuck with their own guilt, their own emptiness, their own reflection. Silence takes away the option of control. But silence isn't just about them. It's about you. Because when you go silent, you finally hear yourself again. You hear your intuition, the voice you ignored for too long because you were drowning in someone else's noise. You create space to breathe, to think, to heal. You break the cycle of back and forth arguments, endless explanations, and the exhausting need to be understood by someone who chose not to understand you. Silence sets you free. Here's what happens when you embrace silence. At first they'll test it, they'll poke, they'll prod, they'll send messages to see if you'll break. Maybe they'll flaunt their new love even harder. Maybe they'll try to provoke jealousy. Maybe they'll act like they don't care, but it's all theater. Because deep down, silence unsettles people. It makes them question. It makes them wonder. It makes them feel the absence of something they took for granted. And the longer you stay silent, the louder it gets. Silence becomes the unanswered question in their mind. Why isn't she reacting? Why isn't she chasing? Why doesn't she care anymore? That question eats away at them because silence is not indifference. It's strength. It signals that you've moved beyond needing validation, beyond needing to prove yourself, beyond needing their approval. That's a kind of power they can't compete with. But let me be clear. Silence isn't passive. It's not about waiting by the phone, holding your breath, hoping they'll come back. No. Silence is active. Silence is intentional. It means you're using that space to invest in yourself. While they're wondering why you're quiet, you're building, you're healing, you're glowing up in every way. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Silence creates the gap that allows you to transform so that by the time they notice, you're already miles ahead. That transformation is what makes silence deafening. Because one day they look back and you're no longer where they left you. You're not sitting in the same pain, repeating the same story. You've grown. You've elevated. You've become someone stronger, someone they can't just walk back to as if nothing happened. That silence, paired with your growth, is what delivers the most powerful message. I didn't just survive without you. I thrived. Now here's the beauty of silence. It removes their control but gives you yours. Every time you choose not to respond, not to explain, not to chase, you reclaim a piece of your power. You remind yourself that your worth is not up for debate, that your dignity is not negotiable, that your peace is not for sale. And little by little, silence rebuilds you. It teaches you patience. It teaches you restraint. It teaches you how to walk away without looking back. Silence also exposes truth. Because if someone was only with you for the reaction, for the drama, for the ego boost, your silence reveals that when there's no reaction to feed on, their mask slips. Their frustration shows. They move on to the next distraction because they can't handle the void. And in that, you see their true character. Silence shows you what words never could. But here's the hardest part. Silence takes courage. It's tempting to send that last message, to make that last call, to prove your point. It's tempting to let your anger do the talking. But the strongest people are the ones who can sit in their silence, even when it feels unbearable. Because they know silence is not about winning the argument, it's about winning yourself back. And over time, silence becomes your shield. It protects your energy. It filters out people who don't deserve access to you. It keeps your focus on what actually matters, your growth, your goals, your future. Silence keeps you aligned with your higher self, the part of you that refuses to settle for less than you deserve. So let me tell you this. Don't underestimate the noise your silence makes. Every second you don't respond, every minute you don't explain, every hour you don't chase, you're sending the clearest message of all. I don't need you to validate me. I don't need you to hear me. I don't need you to understand me. I am whole without you. And when they finally realize the weight of that silence, when they finally feel the emptiness it leaves behind, that's when it hits them. That's when regret creeps in. That's when the collapse begins. Not because you shouted, not because you begged, not because you proved your worth, but because you chose silence. Silence is not weakness. It is mastery. It is strength. It is the loudest reminder that you were always the prize and you never needed noise to prove it. Detachment doesn't just create space between you and someone else. It creates space for you to finally return to yourself. The moment you step back and stop pouring into a situation that no longer serves you, you unlock the opportunity to pour back into your own life. And that's where the transformation begins. At first, it feels like emptiness. You've taken your energy away from him, away from the relationship, away from all the noise, and it feels strange not to be consumed by it anymore. But soon that emptiness becomes fertile ground. It becomes the place where you start planting seeds of growth that will change everything about who you are and how you show up in the world. When you detach, you rediscover your strength. You realize how much of yourself you gave away, how much of your time and energy was invested in trying to make something work that was never meant to sustain you. You recognize that you were bending, sacrificing, explaining, overgiving, all in the hope that he would rise to meet you. And when you stop, when you finally let go, you notice that all that energy can be redirected. Instead of pouring into him, you pour into yourself. You start to rebuild the parts of you that got neglected. You pay attention to your body, your mind, your dreams, and little by little, you start to rise. This transformation isn't loud. It doesn't happen overnight. It's subtle, but it's steady. Maybe it starts with your body hitting the gym, eating better, taking care of your appearance not for anyone else, but because you deserve to feel powerful in your own skin. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you grow stronger. You begin to see yourself differently. You look in the mirror and you don't just see the person who was abandoned or replaced. You see someone rebuilding brick by brick, someone becoming unstoppable. Then it spreads to your mind. You begin to consume different things, books, podcasts, conversations that expand your thinking. Instead of obsessing over what he's doing, you're filling your brain with new knowledge, new skills, new perspectives. You grow sharper. Your thoughts become clearer. You stop letting emotions run the show, and you start mastering the art of self-control. That clarity makes you magnetic because nothing is more powerful than someone who is grounded in who they are. And then the transformation touches your purpose. You remember the dreams you had before him, the passions you buried because you were too busy making him the center of your world. Detachment gives you the space to pursue them again. Maybe it's your career, maybe it's a creative project, maybe it's travel or building something from scratch. Suddenly you're not waiting for him to validate you. You're validating yourself by what you create, what you achieve, what you pour into. And that kind of fulfillment is something no relationship can ever take away from you. What's beautiful about this transformation is that it makes you unreachable to your past. The version of you that he thought he could leave behind doesn't exist anymore. She's gone. In her place stands someone sharper, stronger, more radiant. And when he comes looking, because he will, he won't find the same woman. He'll find someone who doesn't need him, someone who doesn't revolve around him, someone who has built a life so full that his presence is optional, not essential. That's the ultimate shift. Detachment transforms you from reactive to intentional. You stop living in response to what he does and start living by design. You create routines that strengthen you. You surround yourself with people who uplift you. You set standards so high that anyone who enters your life has to rise to meet them. And you carry yourself differently. Not desperate, not waiting, not clinging, but grounded, confident, and untouchable. People feel that energy when you walk into a room. They see it in your posture, they hear it in your voice. They sense it in your silence. That's the glow people talk about. It's not makeup or clothes, it's the inner shift of someone who reclaimed their power. And let's be honest, this transformation doesn't just change how he sees you. It changes how you see yourself. The first time you realize you don't feel the urge to check on him anymore, that you don't care who he's with or what he's doing, you feel a rush of freedom. The first time you achieve something on your own, whether it's a fitness milestone, a promotion, or simply finding peace in your own company, you realize how capable you are. You stop looking backward for closure, because the closure came from your own growth. The beauty of detachment is that it teaches you how to love yourself in ways you were begging someone else to. You realize you can give yourself the consistency, the attention, the stability you wanted from him. And once you taste that, once you see how powerful it feels to fill your own cup, you'll never settle for crumbs again. That's the transformation, moving from dependency to sovereignty, from hoping to choosing, from waiting to creating. And the irony is, that's exactly what makes you irresistible. Not just to him, but to the world. People are drawn to someone who knows who they are, who doesn't beg for love, who doesn't chase approval, who radiates from within. Detachment makes you magnetic, because it proves you are enough on your own. And that's when the tables turn. That's when the very person who thought they could replace you starts to feel the emptiness of their choice. Because while they were busy performing love, you were busy becoming it. So when you detach, don't see it as loss. See it as rebirth. See it as the moment you finally remembered who you are. Because the transformation you undergo while detached isn't just about surviving heartbreak, it's about awakening to your power. And once you step into that, you'll never go back to who you were. You'll never lower yourself again. You'll never beg to be chosen again. Because you'll know deep in your bones, you are the choice. You always were. When he comes back, and he will, you will not be the same woman he left. He will expect to find the familiar, the predictable, the version of you who once gave him endless chances, who overlooked his flaws, who carried the weight of his choices. He will expect the same softness that absorbed his mistakes, the same patience that tolerated his silence, the same loyalty that forgave what should never have been forgiven. But he won't find her. She's gone. In her place stands someone he doesn't fully recognize, someone who doesn't orbit around his presence anymore, someone who has rebuilt herself from the ground up. The man who once thought you'd always be there waiting discovers a truth he never considered. You've outgrown him, and that realization shakes him more than losing you ever did. Because when he left, he thought you'd crumble. He thought you'd chase. He thought you'd fight to prove your worth. But instead, you disappeared. You chose silence. You poured into yourself. You detached. And by doing so, you broke the cycle. You shattered his expectation of you. That's the moment, the balance shift. When he comes back, it won't be because his new love is so perfect. It'll be because that illusion collapsed. The performance couldn't hold up. The flaws he carried into that relationship showed up the same way they did with you. The thrill wore off. The fantasy faded, and suddenly he is haunted by comparison. Not between you and her, but between what he lost and what he has now. And in that comparison, he feels the absence of what you gave, the depth of your love, the steadiness of your presence. That's when regret creeps in. That's when the longing starts. That's when he remembers. But here's the part that matters most. By the time he comes back, you've changed. You're no longer the woman who needs his validation. You're no longer desperate to prove yourself. You're no longer sitting in the pain of rejection. You've risen above it. You've healed. You've grown. You've built a life so full, so vibrant, so strong, that his return isn't salvation, it's disruption. His presence is no longer the prize. The prize is you. And that's the beauty of detachment. It doesn't just make him realize what he lost. It makes you realize what you gained. You gained strength. You gained clarity. You gained freedom. You built discipline. You learned how to sit with silence. how to pour into yourself, how to thrive without him. So when he shows up at your door, or slides back into your messages, or tries to rekindle what he once had, you're not the same woman who would have welcomed him with open arms. You're the woman who pauses, who evaluates, who decides if he even deserves access to you. Because the power has shifted. In the past, he chose to leave. He chose to seek something new. He chose to take you for granted. But now the choice belongs to you. You choose whether he earns his way back in. You choose whether his presence aligns with the life you've created. You choose whether his words hold weight. And maybe you'll allow him back, but only on your terms, only if he meets the standard you've set through your transformation. Or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll realize that the woman you've become has no desire to go backward. Maybe you'll look at him and feel nothing but gratitude that he left, because without that you'd never have found yourself. That's the shift he never saw coming. The woman he thought would always be waiting is gone. The silence he mistook for weakness became your greatest strength. The detachment he thought was temporary became permanent growth. And now, he's not walking back into the same story. He's facing a whole new author. You've rewritten the narrative. You're no longer the character chasing love. You're the one creating it for yourself, setting the terms, building the life, and deciding who's worthy of joining it. And let's be real, this isn't about revenge. It's not about punishing him or making him beg. It's about stepping into your full power, about knowing that you don't need him to feel whole anymore. His return isn't proof of your worth. You already proved that to yourself by thriving without him. His regret isn't your victory, your growth is. His collapse isn't your closure, your transformation is. But here's the irony, the more you stand in this power, the more magnetic you become. Not just to him, but to everyone, because people are drawn to strength. They're drawn to self-respect. They're drawn to the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need, but chooses. And that's what you've become, a chooser. No longer at the mercy of his decisions, no longer defined by his approval, no longer waiting to be seen. You see yourself, and that is enough. So when he comes back, you're not the same. You're wiser. You're sharper. You're stronger. And maybe you'll give him a chance to prove he's changed. Or maybe you'll close the door for good. But either way, you're in control. Either way, you're not chasing. Either way, you're not begging. Either way, you've already won. Because the truth is, detachment didn't just make him need you back. It made you realize you never needed him in the first place. And that's the most powerful transformation of all. You've heard me say it again and again, detachment is power. It's not about punishing him. It's not about proving anything to him. It's about proving everything to yourself. When you walk away, when you choose silence, when you pour into your own transformation, you send the clearest message of all. I am no longer available for anything that costs me my peace, my dignity, or my self-respect. Yes, he may come back. Yes, that new illusion may collapse. But by the time it does, you won't be waiting at the same place he left you. You'll be standing taller, stronger, sharper. And whether you let him back in or close the door for good, that's your choice. That's your power. So don't fear detachment. Don't fear silence. Don't fear letting go. Fear staying where you are, shrinking yourself, begging for scraps, forgetting who you are. That is the real loss. Because the truth is, you never lost him. He lost you. And once you see that, once you live in that truth, you will never chase again. You won't have to. You'll attract, and when you attract, you choose. So remember this, you are the prize. You are the standard. You are the storm and the calm after it. Let him collapse. Let him come back. Because no matter what he does, you win. Not because of him, not in spite of him, but because of you.